December 1st. Today's episode is sponsored by Planspire, the most simple, effortless, and accurate way to plan today's meeting and events, planspire.com. Hello, everyone. I'm Deborah Gardner, host to now the #1 hospitality show, Hospitality Today Live. And each week, here on HTL, we invite the most incredible, the inspiring people that work in the industry to share their stories, their expertise, their perspective, and lessons. And you are not going to believe who we have here today. Actually, I am so honored to have my longtime good friend, Bruce McMillan, to join us here. Bruce has been actually extremely successful in the hospitality industry, including being the former president, CEO for MPI and the Toronto Convention Bureau. And today, Bruce is the Chief Operations Officer for PCMA. And I'm so happy he actually agreed to be on this show, especially since he told my show producer that I'm pretty cool. Well, Bruce, are you buttering up the show host or what?
Hey, you're big time. I had to get myself churched up in order to appear on today's show. So thank you for having me, and I'll try to live up to the standards that you set, not just on your show, but over the years, because your career path is pretty incredible. So I'm glad to be part of this stop on it. So thank you for having me.
Well, we're glad to have you here, man. I mean, it's been a great journey and a great honor to be your friend for so long. And it just so happens we're in the same industry. And even though it's been a year since you started this position with PCMA, I wanted to formally congratulate you because you have inspired me and many other hospitality professionals. So thank you again for being here with us. And while we open up the chat and for comments and for questions from our viewers that are with us today, I wanted to start out and ask you, how did you get started in this business in the first place?
Well, does anybody really go through a plan to get started in the event business? Well, certainly I didn't. And, I was in college. This was my final year in college at the University of British Columbia. And, our faculty of commerce, we wanted to do a fundraiser. So we said, let's do something kind of out of the ordinary. We'll do an event. And we came up with this idea of actually running a celebrity horse race.
Okay.
And so how universities have these pastoral, pristine, green areas, student malls, beautiful green areas. So we went out to a farm and we hired some horses, they were actually donkeys, and we went and got some radio celebrities and we brought them in and we had people wager money and bet on the winners. And it all went very well, surprisingly so. We raised a lot of money. And when everything was said and done, we looked back and we realized that this pristine lawn that some gardeners had manicured over years and generations of students was absolutely destroyed.
Uh-oh.
And we forgot, number one, we destroyed it. Number two, we actually forgot to ask the university for permission to do this. And so very shortly thereafter, I got to experience and see what the carpet inside the Dean of Commerce office looked like at the University of British Columbia. And so lesson learned there, ask permission. Asking permission sometimes is better than begging forgiveness. But it's, getting the right permits, getting the right communication up front. Listen there. So that was my less than illustrious start in the world of events.
Yeah. And that's a memorable one that I don't even think anybody can forget. And I think a lot of people do remember how they got into the industry, and those type of memories do stick. So that's great. That's wonderful. Well, I know it's been a crazy time for everyone and including you. And I think that the pandemic has really given everyone in the meetings and event industry a forced pause. In other words, I think we're going on almost like 9 months now, which is crazy. We're ready to give birth and start all over and start something new. But yet the whole thing that's going on around here right now is that this actually is not our first time. I mean, as I mentioned on previous shows, this is not our first rodeo. We've been through things like this, especially pandemics like SARS and Ebola. And then you've got 9/11 and you've got, recessions and everything. So the truth be known, Bruce, we knew this was going to be happening again. So as an industry, I know not only am I curious, but those that are watching right now, why weren't we ready?
That's a great question. I mean, the good news is every time we've gone through a serious setback, whether it's, 9/11, economic recession, our industry has recovered way beyond where we were. I mean, the 5 years leading up to, the pandemic, we were seeing global economic growth of average growth of 8%. I mean, that's amazing. Our industry was growing. And I think we got consumed by it. I think we saw ourselves growing and we had this momentum behind us. It wasn't just it was all over the world. Countries were becoming destinations. And we just saw it as this train that was on a endless path to greatness. And it was. And, it was something as small as a germ derailed us. And we just we didn't see it coming. And, we all planned for contingency plans. And, I was actually in Toronto when SARS hit. And we weren't ready then. And we weren't ready now. And we were just too busy taking care of business. So, but I think what's come out of this is, we focus a lot as an industry on the connections that we make, whether it's through technology or face-to-face. We're in the business of human connections, and it's forced us to look not just at the connections anymore, but the humanity, because it's been rough on a lot of people, their careers, their households. And, we can play a role in the recovery of that. And I think that's where we need to be going on the go forward with this. We didn't see it coming, but we're going to learn from it. I believe this time more so than ever before.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And you brought up a very good point as far as how important it is to get to the recovery stages. And as the lead at PCMA on the pandemic recovery plan, what are some of those ideas? And above and beyond, what does your role look like for PCMA as in a usual job duty type of day that you have? Because I know you've been real busy with this recovery plan, but what else do you do above and beyond as well?
Well, we call our recovery plan, we call it Recovery Discovery, because there is no playbook. We are in some ways learning as we go. And the good news is we've got more research. We've had more support from our partners. Our foundation at PCMA has been a huge supporter. We created something we call the Business Events Compass. And that's really the roadmap that we have for our plan. And it's got three components of it. One is all around how do we design and define the next participant experience, things about preparing for, on-site hygiene, but also how do we prepare for that, what we call an omni-channel experience, which is something marketers have been talking about for a long time, but we as an industry only focused on one channel, and that was the face-to-face part of it. So that's the participant experience is number one. Number two is business models. You're a professional, a world-renowned speaker. You're now not able to speak to audiences, but you've created another element of your business model. You're using broadcast media to engage, audiences, find new sponsors. So how do business events professionals evolve their business models? We didn't used to charge for virtual events. We used to give it away. Well,
right.
We got to rethink that a little bit now. And then finally, it's the whole element of reskilling. We have to accept the fact that, what the business events industry looked like in January of this year is not going to be what it looks like in January of next year, or probably the year after. And it's going to require, a new set of skills that, maybe when you're seeing cumulative annual growth rates of 8% a year, it's like, well, we'll just keep doing what we do a little bit better. But we're now talking about serious transformation. And, we've seen that. We have some products at PCMA, our digital event specialists, that blew up. I mean, like we couldn't register people fast enough because people were interested in this. They're all looking at reskilling, and our foundation has done a great job investing in these products so that we can get them out to business event professionals everywhere. And it is everywhere, not just in North America, but in Europe and Asia. So I spend a lot of time looking really in those three buckets. And we have a great team. We have great sponsors that help really bring that to life, because those are the three elements as part of our recovery discovery plan that we believe are going to be the most relevant for our industry, now and for the next little while, because it's a different world.
Yeah, very good point. I like those 3 points. That's really important. And because what it comes down to is, during all this stuff that we're faced with, this continuing global economic and health crisis that we're dealing with, the question does come up quite a bit for people and members in particular. And you sometimes wonder, does anyone care about their membership right now?
Well, I think it's important. One of our big things, I think everybody needs to know, recovery is coming. It is going to happen. We have seen a lot of great, announcements about, vaccines, and already in Asia Pacific, there are very few restrictions right now. And we just did an event in Sydney and had a couple hundred people at it, and, recovery is coming. It's going to happen. And, people need to be considering that the industry that was on the other side of recovery isn't the one that's going to look like when it happens. So they have to find ways to engage. We have to reconnect, and using, their memberships and industry associations is a really important way to do that. In fact, we've got, our membership is actually doing very well. We've done very well, particularly with students. We said, through this, we're going to give students free memberships. And because who needs it more coming out of this than our students? And candidly, they're the future of our industry. And so we've added over 1,300 student members in this year alone. And yeah, we gave it to them for free, but that's part of the investment that we're making in the future of the industry, because that's where our future is. And so, staying engaged with your professional community, staying engaged with, all of the insights and research that we're doing, is how people are going to, thrive as we get on the backside of the pandemic.
Wow, those are very good points. And that really pertains definitely to one of the 3 points that you actually mentioned too. And I actually saw recently on the North Star Media that they actually did a poll on this of about 1,000 members of associations and nearly 400 professionals who work at those associations. They said that 50% actually said no, associations are not as important to members as they were pre-pandemic. Instead, they were more important. It's more important than ever before. As a matter of fact, 50% of those respondents said that the value of their membership has increased since COVID-19. So there you go. You're absolutely right. And getting them to participate and get their experience can happen so many ways. It could be training, it could be certification, it could, all their credentials, their education. It's still ongoing. If anything, this is the time that they need to be part of an association like PCMA. There is no doubt about that. So I think the members are hungry. As a matter of fact, I think they're hungry for any help that they can get for the jobs, the increasing their revenues within their jobs, or finding job opportunities at this point. So I think what you said as well, as far as reskilling, this is the time. So what are some of those new skills that people, in particular the generations, need to really pay attention to in order to become more successful when that recovery happens?
There's a couple of buckets around that. And if we look at our, events are going to change on site. I mean, there's going to be a much higher duty of care for the audience. So having an expertise around, in the face-to-face realm, around on-site hygiene, around on-site safety and security, we're just going to think a little bit differently about how we engage our audiences and make sure that they're safe and comfortable, because there's going to be a stigma after COVID. Even with the vaccines and everything, there's still going to be a stigma. So one of the areas is really is the audience centric experience. Like I said, hygiene, and keep in mind that companies and organizations coming out of this, they're going to have their own standards. And yeah, certain venues and cities are going to have regulations around their live event gatherings, but companies and brands are going to have their own. So people are going to need to understand what those realities are, business events professionals. And that's a different skill, because, if you're a large public company, you're probably going to have a very acute level of care. And that's going to require a lot more discovery and understanding of how engagement gets done. So that's one area. The second area is this whole around digitization. And it was a slow trend in our space that was happening. We were becoming more digital, but at sort of in the periphery. That's gone mainstream now. And understanding that a business event is a huge crucible for generating data and insights, whether you're a brand, whether you're an association, whether you're a government organization. An event is where you're going to generate a lot of data about your participants, get feedback on your brand, understand your customers better. And literally the business event professional sits at the intersection of this sort of digital stream that can provide more data from a live event. And candidly, we haven't done a great job at that. We've managed attendance well. We've managed our speakers and our content on site, but we really haven't gotten enough of an understanding data of our attendees. And now with a combination of hybrid and face-to-face, we can do that, but it requires a different set of skills. Having data architects, understanding how, particularly around mobile devices, how mobile engagement happens. And, there's some of the biggest amount of capital going into startups right now is around digital event platforms and digital event tools. We're actually playing catch up because our industry was so focused on the face-to-face experience. We weren't building out our data capacities. So that's another area. And I think the third area, and I think our industry is well positioned for this, is really understanding how an event interfaces with the community at large. Sheriff Karamat, our CEO, has always said the business events industry is not going to be part of the problem of the pandemic, but it is going to be part of the solution. And we've seen a lot of communities and careers and households suffer. And I think business events can play a role at helping restore some of what was lost, and building legacies outside just hospitality receipts. We can play a role in that because literally business events touch multiple communities everywhere. And I think there's a skill involved in that, interfacing with the community and developing those legacies. We know we're a massive industry. Yes. Massive, and it's everywhere. And this pandemic has touched communities and households and careers everywhere. We can give back. We can make a difference. And I think we just have to realize that, this is a real chance for us to think outside the room and be part of that solution.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And thank you so much for sharing that, because that's very meaningful for someone in your position to say to all the hospitality community, because they want to hear from leaders like yourself and know exactly what they're going through. And I think that's key for them to hear. As a matter of fact, we're here right now with Bruce McMillan, if all of you are just joining us now. And we do have some questions that I'd like to bring on board, because it's exactly what you were just talking about. This one is from Lynn Wellish. Has attendance at virtual and hybrid delivered events produced a solid revenue stream at this time?
Yes, I think it has. It's transitioning, absolutely. And that's a great question, because when we survey through our Convene dashboard surveys, that's one of the challenges that people are struggling with. There isn't, a best practice around this, particularly since we used to give it away for free. But yes, two things are happening. One, the reach of the event is going much larger. And you hear from brands like, Cisco and Microsoft, even Starbucks, when they do their events virtually, they get much more participation and engagement in their audiences. And I think associations are now starting to see that as well. And they're figuring out ways to, generate probably smaller revenues per registration, but they're getting larger registrations. So that reach is turning into a larger revenue base. But part of what has to go with that is it's not just, when you have a virtual event or a digital event, it's not just streaming the keynote speaker and asking people to pay for it. It is a much more robust engagement platform. So, your attendees get, they'll get access to the content well after the event. They might get, the speaker might provide their book. There might be a workbook that comes out that, of the takeaways from the event that can be used by the participant, literally the moment they click off the event. I'm at an event, I'm attending an event tomorrow called Digital Now, and it's for association leaders and talking about this very subject, and business models is front and center, but there's traction being made. But it's not just, start charging and stream your speakers. It's really having a platform that allows people to engage. I mean, networking face-to-face is never going to be replaced on a platform.
Right.
And I know a lot of people have tried to crack the code on that, but I've yet to see one. But there are other ways to engage using platforms. So there's a bit of an investment on that side, but it will pay off. This conference usually has, 400 or 500 registered. I think we're pretty close to that from what I've seen so far. And it's all virtual. So it's coming, and it's, stay tuned and watch this space.
Yeah. And so the PCMA Leaders Conference is January 11th through the 15th. Are you implementing a lot of this as well? What's the game plan for your conference?
Well, we talk about events moving to an omni-channel platform or approach, and that's how we've designed Convening Leaders this year. There will be local gatherings where permitted, obviously with the proper protocols in place. We're doing it also virtually, and so you can connect, go to conveningleaders.org and register. The price point has gone way down, and we understand that. It used to be $800-900. We're now at $299. So
right.
we don't want to make price a barrier, because we want people to see what an omni-channel event looks like. And at the core of our is what we call our Global Broadcast Center, and that's actually going to be in Singapore. And there will be a live audience in Singapore, because recovery has started in Asia Pacific, but it will be broadcast around the world in appropriate time zones. Some of it is pre-recorded, some of it is live. We're kicking off with Thomas Friedman as our keynote. So, and he's a very global speaker, and he's got perspectives on most of the questions we all have perking in our heads right now. So he'll be outstanding. We're going to have attendance hubs in Europe and in Asia, and certainly in Canada and the United States. But the idea is we want to bring people back together. And if some can do it, physically, as in Asia Pacific or even in the United States, we can do that. But people want to connect. And so, they want to know that recovery is coming, but right. They know it's going to be different. And we want to show what that would take. We're experimenting just as much as anybody else. So we're going to see what that looks like, but we feel pretty good about it.
So what is PCMA's plan pertaining to when we get the vaccine, the safety and sanitation? I know Burning Man had rescheduled their event in 2021, and you cannot attend unless you have the vaccine. Are there going to be any of this type of stipulations in place by January for the conference?
Well, our local partners, where we're having live gatherings, they got this. We're going to rely on their protocols because they're all different, and literally
Right.
they change every day in some
Right.
cases. So
Right.
that's part of what every business event professional has to deal with. So having
Right.
great partners on the ground to help understand that, that is going to be critical, because it's local. And, we know
Right.
people traveling in January may not be at the top of their list. That's why we're creating these local hubs where people can gather. They don't have to get on an airplane. They can drive to the venue, and we'll be announcing those hubs this week or next. But a lot of it comes down to local preferences, and the next 6 weeks, every day is going to be a different adventure. But and every event professional is living that right now. So we're going to do what we can do. You can see what we're doing, the good, the bad, and the not to be repeated. But we know what you're going through, and we're going through it too. And we want to be able to show how at least we dealt with it, so that you can say, hey, that worked really well, or that's not going to work for us.
Yeah.
So, but we're all in this together, and we're going to learn together. We're going to make mistakes together, but we're also going to succeed together on the other side of it.
Right, right. And then your buddy and mine, David Kleiman, actually wanted to chime in on the conference, the Convening Leaders Conference, pertaining to what else are we going to see by attending?
I think you're going to see a platform. We have a very interesting platform called Juno, and it is an AI-driven platform. It is supporting a lot of. It'll be giving you recommendations about content that you might want to see, because we're going to have a lot of different sessions. It's also going to help you find your peers through cohorts, and because you'll set yourself up as a profile, and the AI engine on Juno will help you understand, hey, you might want to go to this session, or hey, people with your similar profile are going to be in this breakout room. So you'll see that. And it's where human connections engage with digital technology, and it is a bit of an experiment. We know Juno has been used by a lot of brands like Hewlett Packard or American College of Emergency Physicians. They're using it, but this is our first time using it, and so we're excited. We've got a great partner in that, and I think people will see what's possible and see how it works, because there's nothing like a live fire drill to see.
Right.
You can do all the simulations, but when you bring real people behaving, rationally and sometimes not expectedly, we'll see what happens that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm sure everybody's excited about the conference, and what a great way to kick off 2021. And speaking of 2021, as this virus continues, which I can't believe we're coming up to a year of this announcement, I think the only place safe right now is Taiwan. Everywhere else is being hit still and being, with spreading. But you and I both have, and everyone has seen that, the hospitality front of the house or the back of the house are leaving the industry. They really are leaving the industry. So why should we feel hopeful for 2021 within this industry?
Well, recovery is coming, and we're already seeing it in Asia Pacific. Taiwan is safe, but Australia, New Zealand, they were even safer for longer. And Singapore is now allowing, events up to 250, soon to be 1,000. So it's happening, and without a vaccine, I might add. So even without a vaccine, protocols have been put in place, and we should feel hopeful about that. The other thing that is happening is, as I said, every time our industry has, gone through a pandemic, and you look in history. After the bubonic plague, there was the Renaissance. After the Spanish flu that killed millions of people, there was the Roaring '20s.
Right.
We've all seen recovery, and you can't always draw conclusions from history, but we have bounced back, and our economies are being, we have much more data on them. So I think we're going to see some pent up demand, because even. We did a survey, and literally I just got this information last night. We're doing a project to try to understand millennials and Gen Z and what their perception of business events, and we got a survey of over 500 of them, and 55%, when asked what do they look forward to when the pandemic is over, they said getting back together with people face to face. These are the digital natives, the people that live their life through their phone, and they said, hey, I've been there, done that. I want to get back together with my peeps. And these are the ones that we would thought would be the less, but 55% of them, that was their number one choice. And I think we're going to see some pent up demand. And it's, not just me, boomer guy who, been in this industry for a long time. These are people who are in college, who they're the future of our industry, and they want to get back together. So that gives me a lot of hope. And, we did this other survey of boomer guys like me, and hope is up 10 points. Let's just say that people are feeling hopeful. It's gone from 33% to 43% from October to November. So hope is on the rise, and further proof that hope can be part of the strategy.
Wow. Nice. I love that. Well, we have another question for you. Again, from Lynn. She wants to know, what are the 3 trends that have emerged and become best practices? Maybe, I think Lynn's starting her business plans and getting ready for 2021. So to stay ahead of that, what are some of those thoughts that you've heard about for trends?
I think a lot of it depends on the protocols coming out. I mean, we've all been, and I hope some of us have been to business events, and they're different. I mean, you have protocols. So understanding and interpreting those protocols, even after the vaccine, is going to be something that we have to live with. Next, and I referred to this, is digital. Offering your attendees, your sponsors, digital insights or access to digital data points from your attendees, takeaways. That's an important trend. I think that's going to be increasingly, if you don't have it, it's going to be hard to be in the game, because people, we've all, unfortunately, we've been sequestered at home, and a lot of our windows are coming through, digital insights. So behaviors have been changed. I also think, price points are going to be interesting for events.
That's a good point.
And I don't have any data that says, but I think, there's going to be a lot of pressure, because, we've got a health crisis. There's no question we have a health crisis, but we're also going to have a bit of an economic crisis. A bit is probably an understatement, and that's going to endure probably past the health crisis, because companies and organizations, they've got some workarounds in place, and they're going to be very guarded with where they invest their money. This wasn't sort of a short-term shock. This is translated well beyond, I think, what people thought initially, into the impact on our economy. So I think there's going to be a downward pressure on price points. We dropped our price significantly because we want people to participate. And I think that's what, brands and organizations are going to have to do to get people to re-engage, because they're going to be guarded. They're going to be a little bit worried. Do I get on that plane? Right. Do I put myself in a room with, 200 or 300 people? There's going to be a lot of uncertainty. And so price points are going to come under pressure, I believe.
Yeah, I have to agree with you on that. That's why I think negotiating and renegotiating skills are going to have to be pretty polished, because people are going to be doing a lot of that coming up.
One other thing, and I think we lose sight of this just because there's going to be a lot of local events. I think there's going to be an increasing amount of local events, and they're probably going to be smaller. So, people are not going to, and we see this in our research. We ask people, well, what are going to get you to participate in more events? And number 2, obviously, number 1 was health and safety protocols, but number 2 was smaller gatherings. And I think we kind of lost over the last few months an intimacy factor. And we want to get together with people and that we haven't seen, and our colleagues and our customers, but we probably want to do it on a little smaller scale. And because we want to have that feeling of intimacy. And we even saw that before this, that people would pay for smaller gatherings. They'd actually pay more to have, a smaller gathering. And I think that trend's going to continue as well. We're going to see smaller gatherings, and maybe people will even pay more for smaller gatherings. So that remains to be seen. But I think, those are really some of the trends that we're seeing: local, smaller, and then the price points.
Yeah, good points, definitely. And among others, I'm sure that will surface because this industry changes every single day. So if we can just stay up with it, that would be great. Got another question for you, Bruce. This one has to do with diversity in the industry. As far as I think Lisa is pertaining to, how do you foresee diversity being becoming with more women leader positions and other ethnic advances? Any thought process there?
Well, PCMA established something about 2 years ago called our Ascent Principles, and they really guide us. And when the social activism around Black Lives Matter, when it came front and center where it should be this summer, we reminded ourselves that we needed to up our game here, because we subscribed to the principles, but we weren't mobilizing enough. We weren't activating enough on it. And so we've been meeting with our board to really establish some principles, first starting within ourselves around how we embrace diversity, and not just talk about it, but have real actions and policies in place. And so we've done that internally. We're working with our foundation to try to provide more scholarships and engagement and support for communities that we believe should be much more represented in our hospitality and our events industry. So that's really important for us.
Yep.
And that validates this even more. I mentioned about the survey that we did of the millennials and Gen Z. We asked them how they would feel better about being part of the business events industry. And they said, we need to have greater diversity. And we as an industry haven't done that.
No,
and these are people who are our future. And they're saying, hey, if you want us to be in our future, getting back to the point about how do we attract talent to our industry, this is what we're going to have to do.
Right.
So this is not just a PCMA thing. This is an industry thing.
Correct.
And we at PCMA, we feel we can lead. But we're cleaning up our own game first, but clearly the future wants this.
Yeah, that's good. Good to hear that. And especially on an industry basis, not just PCMA, because we're all in this together, as we mentioned. Well, I know our time is coming to a close with you, because I know you have another engagement, but one thing we know is that we just never had a crystal ball to this pandemic. And so my question is, what did you learn in the last few months, you personally, whether it's business or personal? What did you learn?
I'm going to steal a line from Marvel, Spider-Man.
I was wondering what I was going to say.
With great power comes great responsibility. And we're a large global industry, and we've celebrated that. We've created this industry, and I think we have a responsibility to give back. And there's been a tremendous human cost that has impacted our industry, and we're an industry of human beings, of human connections. I think what I've learned is we can do a better job at giving back. And we were late, I think, in recognizing, before it took a pandemic to realize that we had this ability to do that. And we have to do more. Yeah. And, we have to renew. For every event, there's a purpose. And I think we need to make sure that we are understanding the purpose, for finding purpose in each of our events. And, sometimes it just takes the courage to act. And, we don't want to always be all about us. We don't want to be, have that Instagram mentality, selfie mentality. We want to look at how we can, as an industry, not just serve ourselves, but serve the communities that serve us. I mean, without the communities and people, households that make up our industry, we would be nothing. And we just have to find a better job. And I think that's my biggest takeaway. And I know I have to do what I can do. And I think as an industry, I mean, we are an industry of incredible human beings, and we can turn that power into helping restore what has been lost, and some of what has been lost, because we'll never restore all of it, but we can make a difference that way.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. And I'm so blessed to stay in this industry for as long as I have. And I know from your story of starting out, you've come a long way, baby. But it's just been such a pleasure to have you here. I know there's multiple people on here that even want to say hello to you, like Marty saying thanks so much for your insight, definitely. And then of course we've got the famous David Kleiman, who says 2 industry rock stars. Oh, hey, I think I'm going to have him on the show next week because of that.
There you go. Meet the new boss, same as the old boss. There you go.
But I do have one more tough question for you, Bruce. One more, and I'm hoping you can handle this one. Since you have been home these past couple months, majority of it at home, not being able to jet set across the country or anything, have you actually been doing the house chores?
Oh yeah. I wouldn't be allowed to stay here if I'm blessed. I have a great wife who came from this industry, first in hotels, and now she works for American Airlines. Which, both of us are tied to the hospitality and travel industry. So that may not be a long-term sustainability strategy, but it keeps us sane. So yeah, I mean, we're empty nesters for the most part, except for our dog. But yeah, doing the house chores, I'm down with that. If I wouldn't, I'd be looking to sleep somewhere else. So I think that goes with all new work from home job descriptions.
Glad you're doing your part, walking the dog, taking the trash out, all that good stuff. Well, yes, I know it's just been such a pleasure to have you here. I know the next 12 months are going to be, a challenge too, but like you said, I loved hearing that we are on that road to recovery because, instead of waiting for meetings and events to open again, I think you and I both agree that we all need to adapt to this new environment that's here to stay, and embrace it, because once everything does get back to, or forward to what I feel is going to be the new normal, meetings and events are going to be bigger and better than ever before. But overall, we have the same mission, we have the same purpose, and we just, love our hospitality community. And once we embrace that new environment, things are going to really change wonderfully for us. So if anybody wants to contact Bruce, there below you can see his contact information. I'm sure he'd be delighted to answer any more questions. And everyone sign up and register for Convenient Leaders Conference in January to help kick off the new year. Definitely come out and start networking. It's going to be wonderful. So we can't thank you enough and I can't thank you enough for being here with us. Really, really appreciated your insight. It was wonderful. So thank you so much, Bruce.
Thank you, Deborah. Recovery's coming. I promise.
Yay. Yay.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, hope you really enjoyed today's segment with Bruce McMillan, the PCMA Chief Operations Officer. Was there great insights or what? And I'm so glad he was actually able to handle those tough questions. I just hope he thinks I'm still cool. But if you want to see the conversation again with Bruce, by all means, go just to our Facebook page or to our YouTube channel, or share it with others as well. And also, if you have any questions pertaining to our show, by all means, contact us at hello@hospitalitytoday.com and join our community, and you'll see the upcoming shows and resources available to you. And we want to thank Planspire for sponsoring this show as well. So up next, we will have David Kleiman. David actually is an award winner and owner of the Kleiman Group. Now, David will talk about the unexpected shock he personally experienced when the pandemic hit and how his business evaporated like that. And yet, what did he do about it? this is what he's going to share with you. So don't miss next Tuesday's, definitely our Tuesday show. It's going to be a rocking, great conversation with him, and you're going to see it right here on HTL. I'm Deborah Gardner. Thank you so much for joining us on the #1 hospitality show, Hospitality Today Live. Everyone, have a productively busy week, and we'll see you soon.